Alrighty, I went live a little early. I'm going to wait until a few people get in here before I get started. Just want to make sure everything went right. All right, that is going good. All right. Hello, Rich. How you doing? Hey, Rich. So I don't know if you are free at about like 12:30, 12:40. So I'm going to do this live reaction to this short film. But I have to be done around 12:30 or so because I just got invited to do a debate with this guy. He has a pretty decent sized channel. 12.5 thousand subs. His name's Made by Jim Bob. Anyways, he was doing a live stream reaction to George Carnism Debunked, and I got in the chat, and a lot of people were attacking me, and this Jim Bob guy said he wanted to debate. So since I didn't have a specific amount of time allotted for this live stream, I'm going to go ahead and hop over there and debate in about 30 to 40 minutes, and that should be fun. So yeah, if you want to check that out, I'll probably upload the debate separately on my channel, but his channel is called, let's see, I just forgot it already. It's called Made by Jim Bob. Jim Bob being one word. But anyways, it could be fun. Might be worth checking out. But that's going to be, whenever I hop off here, I'll just be hopping right into that. So hopefully I can figure out how to stream that. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to do a live reaction. So on my stream last week, a new vegan channel called Not Your Mum, Not Your Milk asked me to do a follow along to their short film. And I watched some of it, and it's pretty cool. I really like it, and so I'm going to do that now. It's a small channel. I recommend going and supporting them, checking out their stuff, and subscribing. Almost everything on there is like kind of re-uploads of old films about veganism, and it's really fascinating to watch. Like in the 70s, you can see the vegan societies. Well, you're about to see some of it now. Most of the thing I'm talking about comes up in this. Now, there are a lot of films that were made before that he just like kind of uploads because he finds rare versions of them, where this, I think, is a collection of his own. But anyways, let's get into it. Here we go.
At the time of writing this, in March 2023, veganism is the fastest growing social justice movement on the planet. Whilst the numbers are the highest they've ever been at any point since the formation back in 1944, you could also argue that the numbers of those being exploited are also at their highest ever too. There is a growing concern that the original philosophy may be slowly being diluted, if not completely lost, in order to make a new one which is far more welfarist in nature, where abolition is replaced with the reduction of suffering and improving the lives of those who will still only exist to be used or taken from. The idea of this short film is to dive back to the roots of the philosophy and hopefully provide some education, re-education, or simply some inspiration as a collective to once again stand for veganism in the way that was always intended. To re-establish that there is no right way to do the wrong thing, there is no kind or better way to exploit, and improving the environment, enrichment, or quality of life does nothing at all to remove the fundamental wrong, and that is the violation of their rights.
Yeah, I have a feeling I'm going to disagree with a lot of what's said in here. I get the vibe that this is kind of the counter to myself and others that want to push for reducing and whatnot. But I do want to agree with this. There is nothing that can undo a wrong. A wrong action is wrong. A small wrong action is wrong. A big wrong action is wrong. Wrong is wrong. And I think a lot of people mix up these ideas of like the idea of anything being wrong doesn't mean that you can't have various different ideas for how to change the wrong things. I'll bring back the thing that I say all the time. I said it in the vegan gains debate. Imagine if you could know for sure that you take something like slavery, and imagine you could know for sure that if you pushed for an abolitionist view, it would take 100 years longer to end slavery than if you pushed for baby steps and regulations that eventually ended it, but it ended it like 100 years sooner. You would have to go with the 100 years sooner. You'd have to. I mean, you wouldn't have to. You could let your moral stance force you to do a bad action. You can let people be harmed in slavery for 100 years because you care more about your standing on your word and not being able to. It's like the idea of like lying. Like if you, I think lying is a pretty bad thing to do. I don't think people should do it. But if somebody was trying to murder somebody that I was hiding in my house, and they said, "Is this person in your house?" There's a good chance that that'll be the rare case that I lie, because I'm very against lying, but I would do this right thing. Now, the idea of caring so much about a certain topic that you wouldn't, and you would say, "Yeah, they're in here," and then somebody comes in and kills them. You can take that stance if you want, but I think it's clearly the wrong stance. So yeah, anyways.
Whilst the Vegan Society may have been established 79 years ago this winter, the idea and ethics which encompass veganism have obviously been around for much longer. There's plenty of evidence of people choosing to abstain from using animal products which can be tracked back some 2,000 years ago at least. The Greek philosopher and mathematician Pythagoras, for example, was an undisputed vegetarian. He viewed vegetarianism as a key factor in the peaceful coexistence of people and nature. He held the view that slaughtering animals brutalised the human soul. In the same era, or a little bit after, you had Buddha discussing the ideas of peace and promoting a vegetarian diet within his growing number of followers, and vegetarianism has always been a central part of Buddhism, which enshrines compassion to all living creatures.
I think this is awesome. I really think it's amazing that there are people that, without knowing if there would be like negative health outcomes, were willing to be compassionate and care about animals. I mean, it only makes perfect sense that you can see an animal suffering and think, I don't want that to suffer. It's a bummer that a lot of people don't care. But yeah, it's kind of strange because a lot of how things affect us is based on what we learn. And back before, maybe, I don't know, what, 75 years ago? I don't know when the discovery of something like B12 was discovered, but humans cannot get B12 outside of like eating their own feces. Cannot get B12 unless it is in a supplement, which is a kind of a new invention. So anybody that was vegan before, say, 7,500 years ago, they were taking that risk, which is fine. It's a fine risk to take. A lot of people, I've talked to vegans that say if they were stranded on an island, they wouldn't kill a cow or a chicken to save their lives, and they would just die. And that's fine. You can take that. You can take that risk. But a lot of things come down to what you know and what you're capable of doing. So I just think that's kind of interesting to imagine a time where people unknowingly were sacrificing their health levels based on the B12 situation. Anyways, Louis Ghetto wrote something here. By the way, if you're not friends with Louis on YouTube, search his name, find him, hit subscribe. Lewis is great. Lewis said, except that there's zero evidence that advocating for 2-inch bigger cages or other shit welfarist improvements will lead to abolition goals faster or at all. Sure, this just comes down to us. We can look through history, we can look at different things and figure out what's likely. Now, the more you get people to open their eyes and think about things, I think the more likely there is for change, whether it's burning witches at the stake or, legally forcing everybody to be certain religions that people had to be throughout most of history, slavery, feminism, all these different things. So I think it's obvious that getting people to open their minds and think about things is a big one, which I think getting legal changes like bigger cages would play into that. Because I think what makes people care less, like I was talking to a guy the other day, and I don't know if you guys saw it, but it was a non-vegan that said, of course eating animals is wrong, I wish I didn't do it, but everybody else is doing it, so I'm doing it. If you make it to where people can't do a certain thing, then they open their minds up more. Trying to change minds while something's legal is very tough. So if you get somebody to like right now, somebody might think it's sad to eat pigs, but they're going to do it. But that person might want pigs to have bigger cages. But even if they stay the smaller cages, they're still going to eat the pigs. And if they get the bigger cages, they're going to eat the pigs. The bigger cages will be better for the pigs. And once the bigger cages are there, those people won't say, I don't care if you give them a smaller cage. They'll say, yeah, this is good. We want this progress. And then each bit of progress gets people to open their eyes and talk about it. Even the worst of the people that go along with the norms aren't going to want the progress to go the other direction. They're not going to. You will not find a person out there that would demand for pigs to have smaller cages for the most part. So I think that's a big element there. But anyways, I'm going to stop rambling about that for a second. Gigi says if 15% less animals are killed, 100% of the 85 left still get killed. So whilst overall suffering is reduced, individual suffering doesn't. If animals, care about suffering, it will be individuals. If animals care about. This is why Meatless Mondays doesn't help. No, okay, so here's the problem with that. If you have 100 pigs and reducing saves 5 of them, then the point you're making, well, I guess I could just say 15, sorry. If reducing saves 15, so 15%, then that means 85 are still going to die. And looking at those as individuals, those 85 don't care that you helped 15. But here's the problem. Those 15 are also individuals, and they do care. I mean, preferably the 15 you're just saving 15 from ever having to be bred into existence. But either way, whether you save them from killing and they go to a sanctuary or 15 less are bred into existence, those are also individuals. So if you look at 100 and go, we could save 15 or save none. Saving none means 100 individuals will feel this bad thing. Where saving 15, you're right, the 85 don't give a shit that we helped 15, but we should care that we helped 15. If I see 100 babies in the street and they're all like dying or whatever, and I can grab one and save it and grab another and save it, it's better to grab 15 than none. And it doesn't help the other 85, but still. Okay, so Rich, which Vegan Pundit says, B12 has been detected in water, soil, and other sources. Okay, so this is a misunderstanding. And I actually could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. I did a bunch of research on this. So Dr. Michael Greger from nutritionfacts.org, that's where I first heard about B12 and the understanding of it. And I would love to talk to him to see if he would correct himself now. But he talked about how it was in the water supply and dirt. And so when we'd eat like dirty carrots or drink water from the river, that's where we always got our B12 from. And now that we clean our water, we have less cholera. We also lose the B12. But he's wrong. So here's the thing. So ruminant animals like cows and sheep and deer and whatnot, their their intestines, their intestines, in there is a bacteria. So when they consume cobalt, which is an element in dirt, and it can also get in water because of dirt, their intestines turns it into B12. And therefore, it's in their bodies and it's in their meat and so on and so forth. The way human intestines and all primates work is that we have the large intestine and the small intestine. So the first set of intestines it gets to, the cobalt gets to, that is the set of intestines that soaks in vitamins and minerals. We after it gets past that to the next set of intestines, nothing will soak in from that point. But our bacteria that can turn cobalt into B12, that happens in the second set. So humans, almost all humans, all the time, their feces is full of B12, all kinds of B12. But the part of our body that absorbs B12, it's already gone past that. So unless somehow your body does some reversal thing, which I doubt that's ever happened in history, we cannot get B12 in any way other than consuming B12 already created. So we got supplements that are where it's already created, or like meat products and whatnot. But no, from my understanding, B12 cannot happen without cobalt, which is how you get the cobalamin. B12 is cobalamin, cyanocobalamin, methylcobalamin. You have to have the supplement or the meat. You have to have the B12 itself going in the body and not just the cobalt. And our bodies can't turn cobalt into it. Okay. There's no good reason to analyze the goal of animal rights with human rights, since we already know that the vast majority of humans hold a very different perception of animals. True. So human slavery. Yeah, that's the thing. The people that are okay with killing animals today were okay with slavery before, and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's not a one-to-one. But the humans have the ability to care, and I think it's reasonable. We have to compare it to something. We could say we have no way to know for sure what methods will help, but I think we can be reasonable about it. I think if I walked up to a stranger on the street that ate meat and I said, "You're a jerk. You're doing this. It's horrible. You suck. Be a vegan or else." And I just said that to them, and then they went home and told everybody they knew, "Whoa, man, these vegans are crazy." I think it's reasonable to say that that's not helpful. Now, we might experience something where if we get enough vegans out there saying that, and then we randomly see that we have an uptick in vegans, we'd go, "Oh, wow, saying this outrageous thing, it works. So even if it doesn't make sense to me, I have to accept that it works." So we have to use our reasoning. And then we have to go by the numbers. And I don't know. That seems like about it for what makes sense. Let's see. Where did we go? Vegan pundit. Overall hygiene and soil conditions have cut down natural sources of B12. Yeah, please, you could be right. Send me information on that. I've read so many studies that I don't think that's true about B12. Comparison in terms of welfare reform isn't valid. Okay. But Meatless Monday just reduces demand, so less would be bred. The 15 don't go anywhere. No, you're wrong. That's the thing. So less would be bred. We don't want them bred, right? Like that's what we want. Cows and chickens that are bred, they're not just animals out in nature that could either survive or not survive. We have bred them. So our goal would be to have the least amount bred. So it's kind of hard to look at numbers in like a past future sense. But if they were going to breed 1 million cows to be slaughtered for the year 2024, and we do something that gets them to breed 15 less or any number less, one less in 2024, then that is the 15 essentially, they do go somewhere. They just never get created, and that's good. If we save 15 out of a potential million, which again, with the percentages, it would be 15 out of 100. So say one farm is going to have 100 cows, and we can get them to only breed 85 and not 15. The difference between that would be whatever would take place in the vacuum of me creating 15 cows to make them suffer and die, and then looking at that and saying, what if that didn't happen at all? Like that matters. That really matters. Each little bit matters. The less we breed matters. The ones that are here, the less they suffer matter. It almost seems like it doesn't. So I get where you're coming from, but I'm pretty sure it does. There is no 15 less. They just make up the next. There's no. They make up the next 100. Not if they're not in demand. If the demand goes to a level to where instead of a farm having 100 every year, they have 85 every year, then that would be 15 less every year. The demand matters. So if you turn every time somebody turns vegan and they essentially save like 200 animals a year, then they're changing that demand. Now people are being born that eat animals as well, so the demand might not always go in the right direction, but it matters as long as the demand's there. Lewis said, ergo, even if welfare legislation was effective for humans, it can't be claimed that therefore this must translate to the goals of animal abolition. Well, this was effective for humans. This can't claim that therefore this must translate to the goal. I don't know what that means. So you're right. If the goal is abolition and we never reach abolition, then we can't call something having worked for the abolition. That's true. If we want to cut the suffering in half, which obviously would be a better goal than nothing, then the goals of cutting in half, once half is reached, then that can show that benefited that. I don't know if I fully understand what you're saying, but again, I can't see how every little bit is better than nothing. Okay. So Vegan Pundit says B12 exists in human mucus. Okay, I'll look that up. I'm not too familiar with that. B12 has been detected in water sources. B12 and not cobalt. That'd be interesting. I wonder if that comes from the feces of animals that have made B12. That'd be interesting to look at. I don't think now. Actually, I think I did see something about maybe dandelion greens had a little bit of B12, but if it had an amount that mattered, people would be eating that instead of supplements. So, and same with water. I wonder if it were in water and there was a way to like kind of clean out the water without killing the B12, that'd be kind of interesting to consume more B12 water. But probably boiling water to clean it. Probably kills the B12, but yeah. Eventually, when they have 100 left, they just reduce breeding by 100 next time. They don't send the 100 left to the sanctuary. They are not saved. No, the math must stay accurate unless they're throwing a lot of meat in the garbage. The math of demand has to be what it is. If people buy from the store and they reduce, whatever that means, you can have 10 units of meat versus 20 units of meat. If the world's consuming a total of 20 units of meat and you get everybody to cut down to the point where the world's eating 10 units of meat, then the farmers will breed half that amount to consume. And then each year they'd breed half that amount. If they went from 100 to 50, then they would breed 50 every single year. But that would be a difference of what they might normally do. If you don't get the reduction, they do the 100 every year. The only way that wouldn't be the case is if a farm decided we're going to breed and kill the same amount no matter what. And then when the reduction happens, they just throw a bunch away. But I doubt that would happen. Okay. Turning Veganese says, "Are you still promoting Meat Flake Mondays?" I guess so. Whatever that is. Yeah. Anyways, let's see. Okay. Lewis said, "We don't need to compare it to human slavery unless you can demonstrate that the vast majority of humans perceive animals in basically the same way we do humans." No, what they see now doesn't matter. You'd have to show that what humans saw at a certain point in history about slavery and compare it to that. Um, yeah. So if 5% of people at a certain time during slavery were against slavery and they were trying to fight to end slavery, then we'd compare that to 5% of us vegans fighting against animal harm. Let's see. Yeah, so the 15 were never bred. The 85 all still die. Correct. So it's 100% that die. Yes, 100% of the 85 die. Correct. Which is good. That's good compared to the 100% of 100. Actually, vegans who think that animals deserve to not be exploited at all probably comprise of 0.0001. Yeah, you're probably right. It is what it is, and I think there are plenty of laws that should go in place to prevent animal harm, and then it wouldn't matter exactly what people thought. But I think there are a lot of people that are capable of thinking better on this topic, and we vegans should help them think better on it. The above is just one of the many articles. The above, I didn't see it posted above, but we keep in contact. I'll be able to figure it out. Let's see. I think I need to just email you my argument for the 85. Yeah, maybe so. Also, Gigi, I don't know if you're up for coming on a stream. It's easier to talk in person sometimes about it. Like, I mean, voice to voice. Some people don't want their name or image to be seen on the internet. So if we do a stream, you could leave your video off if you want. And then also your name would just show up as Gigi. And so we could talk about it, and we can do that whenever you want. Lewis said, Carson, I'm arguing that promoting that exploiting animals is less abusively is a good thing, actually impedes abolition goals because the welfare message is diametrically opposed to the abolition. No, you might be right. It's very possible. I don't think it's likely, but you might be right. The closest thing I can compare it to is what me and Richard Vegan Gaines were talking about, which would be laws were put in place to end the exportation of slaves about 50, 60 years before the Civil War and slavery ended. And there were many different laws that were put in place extending different things. If you put it in law, not that this was the case, but if you put it in law saying that if you were found to have killed your slave, then you're in this much trouble. And if somebody put it in law that, like, okay, you can't whip slaves anymore, and all these various different things. If slave owners were found to have starved them, then it could mean this, and you'd have these different punishments. It might make some people go, oh, okay, we're kind of fixing the problem, so we don't have to worry about slavery. But overall, I don't think that's the case. I think we'll always have good arguments to be against something bad. So no matter how many good things they make for animals, if it is bad, then we should be able to show that it's bad. If we give enough good things that people are like, okay, this is fine, then that's what they think anyway. So it doesn't matter. We're going to think a certain thing is bad. We're not going to be able to necessarily trick anybody. So, but you could be right that it might not be overall best. Vegan Pundit says small changes in demand are subsumed by the already existing waste and subsidies, protecting the producers of the market leverage. Removing the government removing subsidies from animal farmers, I think, is probably the best thing that we could do. Gigi said that she agrees. Well, Gigi, are you a she or he? I just said she. For some reason, I think of you as a she, but you might not be a she. I don't know why I made that up. Maybe it's because I thought you had a bunch of cats, and I think of people that like cats as she's. But then I found out you have a dog, so maybe you're not a she because you have a dog. Anyways, I'm going to stop rambling about that, and I don't even need to know, but you can tell me if you want. We will have to agree to very strongly disagree. Yeah, maybe we'll figure it out at some point. Very large-scale losses could potentially affect the meat industry, but not so much the dairy industry. I think the dairy industry... hell no, I don't have cats. Oh, and he. Okay, cool. I think the dairy industry is the first to go. And I think that should be where we start putting the laws in place. And I know people would review that as reductionism, but wouldn't that be amazing if it was illegal to have a dairy farm and to do anything with dairy, even if pigs and cows and all these animals were being killed, and that's horrible? Wouldn't it be amazing to have that reduction of no dairy can be taken from cows, sold, no calves can be taken away, no rape rack, none of that. Yeah, I think that kind of reduction would be incredible. Okay, here we go.
I No Longer Steal from Nature by Al-Mari was written around 1000 AD, which not only abstains from eating or consuming all animal products, it even talks about injustice. Leonardo da Vinci in the 1400s was utterly repulsed by the slaughter of animals and openly refused to partake or be around the eating of flesh. The 17th century philosopher John Locke voiced arguments openly about how animals were intelligent creatures, capable of thoughts and feelings, and even raised moral objections to how animals were used and treated. In 1806, Dr. William Lamb and Percy Shelley were amongst the very first to publicly object to both eggs and dairy on ethical grounds, and by the late 1800s, vegetarian restaurants had even started to become popular in London, with other cities joining the suit by the turn of the century. This brings us back nicely to the foundation of the Vegan Society, which is the oldest recognised vegan organisation in the world and was founded in the United Kingdom by pioneers Donald Watson and
Whoops.
Sally, otherwise known as Elsie Shrigley, who called on non-dairy vegetarian allies to organise in 1944.
One interesting part of the history of the vegan social movement is the fact that the people who formed it and in the end ran it had no idea that that was going to happen, that that was going to be their fate. They simply wanted to have a vegan enclave as such within the vegetarian movement. But the vegetarians said no. And that was a good thing in the end. The vegetarians said to the vegans, no, you go and do your own thing. And so that's what happened in 1944.
Donald, his wife Dorothy, Elsie, Faye and her husband George Henderson and others would in November of 44 pave the way for everything that was to come and for what we know today as veganism, including of course the very word vegan, coined from the first 3 and the last 2 letters of the word vegetarian.
Now their first job was to prove that a 100% plant diet was satisfactory, because that was against the medical orthodoxy of the time. In fact, their doctors and their vegetarian friends all believed that they were going to die.
But what were those core ideas that inspired the movement's creation? Were they based on those of rights or welfare? Let's find out together. I wanted to take this moment to reiterate something I don't think.
If anybody thinks veganism has a goal of only welfare, I'm just trying to think, that just seems kind of silly to me. I'm probably the biggest pusher of animal welfare that I know, but then again, most people I talk to that have a similar idea as me that are vegan, I guess have the similar idea. So they feel like, yeah, it would be great if nobody ate animals, and maybe someday there should be laws against eating animals, but every little bit helps. So I don't know if this argument that this is putting forward is that there are vegans that only want welfare. Yeah. Anyways, it's just kind of interesting to think about. Now we cannot. Nobody can ever be completely vegan in the sense of not harming any animals whatsoever. There's always going to be some little bit, but we can push it to a pretty far level. I don't know if people will ever stop driving cars and therefore the insects that get hit by the cars. But yeah, I think we can get to the point where we don't kill a single animal for consuming them, and we don't consume their milk or their eggs. And so the rest will just be a matter of figuring out what's best, trying to figure out the best approach to farming without harming animals. But yeah, there's always going to be little things that get in the way, and then you're always going to have issues like the extremes, like saving something from a burning building or eating something on an island. Because really it comes down to our convenience, our luxuries, our abundance we have right now, because hopefully we won't like slide back into not having so much abundance. But the argument's a whole different world if you're talking about people out in nature, survival of the fittest. it's just a whole different world. So yeah. Anyways.
that many are aware of, and certainly I hadn't fully realised until I started researching this film. The entire philosophy was born off the back of two world wars, one of which was very much still ongoing at the time of the foundation, and the idea of peace and justice and freedom were all inspired by the exact opposite which each of those had witnessed envelop them all. Donald Watson for certain lost some of those closest to him during this time, and it's safe to say that all of the founding members will have been deeply affected by the Great Depression, oppression and hopelessness, not to mention the constant threat of losing their own lives. It took not only strength and courage, but also a deep level of respect and empathy towards others. At a time when it would have been so easy to be selfish, they instead wanted to be selfless, and this all well before the end of the conflict, and especially before the two atrocities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The reason that I wanted to make sure this was brought to the attention of everyone is because it completely goes against that modern day consensus that veganism is just a diet, when in the reality is it was always about the direct opposition of violence, the opposition of injustice, the opposition of oppression. It was always a philosophy of peace, justice and freedom for all.
In an interesting history of the movement when it was 70 years old, Dr. Samantha Calvert points out that one of the pioneers, Leslie Cross, in 1949, said that, hang on a second, we don't have a philosophy of veganism. We don't have a very good definition of veganism. The vegan diet was defined, but not veganism. So that's what they set out to do from then on until around about 1954. However, even before that, there were some attempts. For example, this is Donald Watson from 1945. He's the best known of the co-founders of the vegan social movement. And he said that veganism was the opposition of the exploitation of sentient life.
Okay, the object of the vegan society is to oppose the exploitation of sentient life, whether it is profitable to do so or not. Is to oppose the exploitation of sentient life. So oppose. Okay.
Leslie Cross, though, was really the person whose writings established the evolution of vegan philosophy. What he did really was establish what you could call the focus and the scope of veganism. The focus is always on our relationships with other animals, but the focus is only part of veganism. The scope is much wider and concerns environmental issues, and in particular issues about human evolution. They said that humanity had got into a new low, and veganism was the kind of key to get it out. The language could be a bit flowery at times, but the strong underlining message was always that the liberation of other animals was our own liberation, that the benefits to humanity from veganism would be absolutely huge.
And if we can solve this problem of animal exploitation and spread veganism, we should also solve the problems of war and poverty and all the other things that has caused immense suffering to people and animals through the ages.
The movements for human, earth, animal liberation. When we start to put these movements together, we get what I call total liberation. When we think in terms of total liberation rather than single issue, we start thinking in a very different and much more profound way.
In two separate essays in 1951, Cross made it crystal clear that veganism was about animal liberation rather than animal welfare. He was very strong on this point.
If you look at the distinction between use and treatment, the animal welfare position is use is okay if treatment is acceptable. The animal rights position is that use is not acceptable, however humane the treatment may be.
Yeah, use being okay if the treatment is acceptable is such an idiotic idea. I think anyways. But that's not the thing I'm pushing that a lot of people are pushing when they push for what's called, a lot of people are calling it welfarism or reductionism. It's talking about every little bit helping to get to the goal. So yes, if somebody wants to be strongly against the idea of somebody saying that we need certain kind of treatment, and as long as that's good to go, then we've reached our goal and we're done. There's no more goal. But yeah, having an overall goal of what you want the final outcome to be. I mean, I want the same as everybody else. That's just the overall goal. But having single issue things that get there in the meantime are very important. Ending SeaWorld, ending rodeos, ending bullfighting, ending cockfighting, ending all these different things. I don't think there should be horse races or dog races or any of these various different things. And so, anyways, every little bit mattering. I don't think the studies have been going on long enough or are concrete enough to force people to not consume animal products right now. I just don't think it's feasible. And then if you look at things like vaccines having like egg particles in them, and there's a lot of different things. If somebody's like low in vitamin D3, it's very important to get D3. I take a D3 supplement and it works perfect for me. But if there are some people that would need maybe a different kind of supplement to get there, I think it's acceptable to let humans take care of their own health. And so it just when it comes down to something like a legal approach, it's very complicated. Now, as far as the push for a total abolition, you can't ignore some of the things that we might some vegans view as kind of silly, which would be something like crop deaths. If we put out poisons, rats eat the poison, and they bleed from the inside and have slow suffering deaths. Just because we want to give them poison so they don't harm our food. Now, I agree, we need to protect our food, but to call this not exploitation, the only defense I've ever heard that makes any sense, which does not make sense, is that we're defending our rights to have food. That the animal that we're defending our food from doesn't know anything about this. They aren't agreeing to this. We recognize that we can't reason with them and we need our food, so we kill them. But again, no vegans are fighting for that because that wouldn't be a reasonable thing to fight for in the moment. It's more important to focus on other things, and eventually we'd get to that. So me saying that we should focus on reducing and then get down to no eating animals at all, it's just like vegans, like your average vegan saying, we need to focus on eating no animals at all, and then we need to focus on the crop deaths. We're all reducitarians to a various degree on the spectrum of being reducitarian. We must be, even down to the person that drives a car and hits the insects. We all are reducitarians, and we all are figuring out which thing makes us look less crazy for what's acceptable to push. Let's see. Okay. So, man, it's a bummer to cut this so short. I want to give this short film a good go. I really want to go over it, and I love learning about the history of veganism. So I'm going to remember where I left off. I'm only a third of the way through this, but I do have to hop over. If anybody wants to see a debate I might have here in a minute, with a guy named Made by Jim Bob, you got to hop over to his page or wait until I upload it. But I'm going to be doing that debate soon. And I got to head out. But thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for your thoughts. Again, I change my mind all the time. So sharing your ideas and your arguments with me are great. And we should keep having conversations and figuring this out together. All right. Take care, guys.